Buenas, buenas, buenas. I'm Vanessa, the host of Chicklet, a podcast to empower women. Each episode, I'll unlock the power of stories by exploring popular chicklet themes and use them as a starting point for insightful conversations. Today's episode is on the book Outlier by Malcolm Gladwell. And I have my friend Pam as a guest on the podcast. Hi, Pam.
Hey, how are
Good.
you?
I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. I love this. I think you're my like seventh guest, maybe. So it's still new. Like this
Yeah.
is like we're working on it. So I appreciate you being on and taking time out of your schedule and all that fun stuff. So hi.
No, of course. No, you saying, by the way, like this is your seventh episode or seventh guest. You're doing great. Honestly, you're very professional. It's a very smooth process. So I think you're doing amazing,
Oh my God.
honestly. So I'm very proud of you. But thank you for having me. I feel very special.
Amazing. I mean, I podcasting I feel like for some people is like some foreign like thing that other people
Yeah.
do, but it's we can all do it. So I try to tell everyone that they can have a podcast. I feel like you should have a podcast, but maybe we'll get into that in a little bit.
I'm a yapper, so I can see why you would say that. But yeah, not everybody likes doing podcasts. But I realize if I want to get like my story out there, and I feel like things get lost in translation, so a podcast is the perfect outlet for anyone to just say their side of things, their input. So yeah.
Let's start off with like how we met. How do we know each other?
So I think it's really cool how we met. Very like just genuine and organic. We met through this nonprofit organization. We're both committee members. I'm on the marketing
Well,
committee. You're on
actually,
the
sorry.
wait.
So
How did you wasn't through there?
no, no, no. That's 100% accurate.
Okay, I was like, wait.
No, that's perfect. The thing is
Yeah.
that I don't mention the Latina organization's name on my
Oh,
podcast.
that
Yeah,
out.
exactly, exactly. So we'll just say
Good idea.
we met through the Latina organization, because
Yeah.
I wanna be able to say what I want, and if I name drop them,
Yes.
I can't talk about white supremacy, or maybe I can, but I just don't wanna
Yeah.
filter myself. So I just say, you know what
Mhm.
I'm saying, the Latina organization.
No, 100%. Honestly, I didn't even think
No, no,
of that.
no.
So thank you for correcting me because that's something for me to note that I'm being for the
Yeah.
future. Because I like to yap a lot,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we said. So that's a really good valid
Yeah,
point. So
and, like, personally, everyone
yeah,
knows, you go on my page, everyone knows I don't keep it a secret,
yeah,
but on each episode, I would hate
yeah,
for us to talk about our experience and then reach out and be like, "You're representing us and you talked about X, Y, and Z," you know what I'm saying? So I just
yeah.
like to keep it separate.
No,
But
I
yeah,
agree 1000%. So thank
so
you.
that's how we met is through the Latina organization on the board. We're
Yes.
both board members.
I love how we just met organically through there because there's so many people, but you and I just clicked right away. And also you supported me immediately. It's like I felt like I knew you. Like you were like a family friend or like a cousin of mine or something. Like you came to one of my events for my business in the beginning of the year. It was the event,
Yeah.
right? You were there and like it was just so like wholesome. I think it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And every time we see each other, it's like friends, just like, oh hey girl, how you doing? Like, it's cool.
No, and I feel like all of us, I feel like I have to support like every woman, every Latina that is doing something because it can get really like lonely and isolating. When, I have my podcast and I'm supporting it, I'm supporting it. And it's really it sounds like messed up, but like I really do notice who is sharing it, who is talking about it, who is supporting it. And so it makes me sad when I see people who I really love and I want them to succeed. I see them not supporting me. So anytime that I meet someone like you, who you have your own company and you're also a makeup artist, and what else do you do? I feel like you're a jack of all trades. You got like your hand in every pot.
Um, I don't even mean to. The thing is, I love to create, but I also do like small business consulting. So nothing. It sounds like really official and professional. I don't really like to say. It. I just saying like I like to help people,
Yeah.
basically. You know what? Like if you have any questions and stuff, you can just come to me for that. And then I also do like digital marketing and content creation, like for certain business, like a skincare, beauty, local businesses, stuff like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I feel like you do a lot of collaborations with like local places in Jersey.
Yeah.
And that's so amazing because not only like with my podcast, like you being on my podcast, like people are going to hear about you and your makeup artist and your all of this your services and your, skincare line. and your followers are going to listen and hear, you know, about my podcast too. So it's like we're both benefiting, and I love that supportiveness of like our friendship, you know. I think it's really
Yes.
important that we support each other, you know.
I agree, especially on what you said, because I had like an experience like that recently. And a lot of people always said it in the beginning, like, oh, when you start your business, you're gonna lose a lot of like support or just something that's just different out of the
Yeah.
ordinary, you know? Like when you get a promotion on a job, people are more quick to like applaud you versus when you're just doing something unknown, like starting a podcast or a skincare or any type of business, you know? So yeah, I always am all about support because experiencing that makes you feel really like alone and like you doubt yourself. So finding people along the way like you is just super important and I like really value it and I'm grateful for it.
Amazing. I love that. I'm glad you feel the same way. So let's talk a little bit about the book. You
Yes.
are the one that told me about this book. I had never heard of it before. I've heard of Malcolm Gladwell, like he's written
Yeah.
like a few books, but this book I'd never heard of it. So I only read it because you wanted to be on the podcast. I wanted you to be on the podcast, and you wanted to do this book. So that's the only reason why I read it. So
Yeah.
tell me your thoughts.
I've always been a book nerd. I've always loved reading books. Back then, obviously, when you were younger, you used to read a lot of like fiction books and stuff like that. But as I got older, I really just again coming from like Latinos and stuff like that, not all of us are exposed to certain things. So, you know, I just would read and research so I could just learn about the life that I wanted or the career that I wanted. You know, just the unknown that wasn't common to us Latinos. So I would read a lot. My mom always emphasized that. And in college, one of my cousins, we lived together in college. She had so many books, and this book it wasn't this exact one. This I think he recently redid
Yeah.
it. So I got it because again, like paperback reads to me. I like to take notes. But she had books I love to read. I would commute on the subway and I would take like a 40-minute subway ride downtown from uptown all the way to Manhattan all the way to downtown. So that would be a good amount. At first it was a slow read, but as I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, like this it just brought me peace, this book, and a lot of clarity because obviously in college like you're young, you're hungry for like so much, but I couldn't understand why, and I don't like making excuses, but I couldn't understand why my counterparts like always had one up or like had these things and I couldn't figure it out, and it's just like the book taught me sometimes yes it is always hard work, but like times in your life, like he brings up an example even when you were born, like the month you were born even plays a part in your success, your network, everything. That's why it's so important to be very, my mentor also brought this up, like being intentional and intuitive with everything that you do in every room that you place yourself in. And this just made me feel like okay, it's not only me, it's just there are certain things that I don't have like access to, but it doesn't mean that I can't do it through another way. So
Right. I feel like this book did a really good job of teaching us that your success is not only like you being able to do things, it's like your circumstances, right? Like there was one example where there was this guy that had a really high IQ. I forget his name, but
mhm.
because he grew up really poor and his parents didn't like foster that like education route and didn't foster him having professional conversations, then when it came time to advocating for himself, he had never done it before. So he was like, "Oh, you know, you're not going to change my class schedule, or oh, you're not going to extend the deadline. Okay, I guess I'll quit and I'll go work a job." Whereas people who are successful, they have the ability, they are really smart, and they have those conversational skills because their parents have exposed them to advocating for yourself, where if you don't meet the deadline, you make it happen. You talk to the director, you tell them I'm going to do it, you know, you figure out a way to make it happen. And those are skills. It's not just that you're born with it and you have it. Like it's a lot of moving pieces. And so it's funny that you mentioned the time as well, because that was another example. Like the cutoff for sports he had mentioned for hockey
Yeah.
was like January, right? So if you look at all of the professional hockey players, they are all, most of them, like a large majority of professional hockey players, were born in January, February, March because they were
Okay.
always the bigger ones. So they were always viewed as like the better skilled ones because they were like the oldest one out of the group. And so it's like those times are very crucial for us. And I think specifically for us being Latinas, I think this is our time as well. So it's like the time that you're born, sure, but also the time period that you're growing up in. If we were born 100 years ago, like first of all, I'm half Latina and half white, so like that already like I my life would have been completely different, right? And the fact that you're Dominican, right? Like
Yeah.
you're 100 years ago, like Dominicans in the US, like I don't was there even Dominicans in the US 100 years ago? Like who knows, right? Like I feel like everyone was still in the DR. So it's like the fact that we were born now in, in the 90s and we are like or 2000s. I think you're young, right?
No, I was born in 98.
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
hey. I'm a 90s baby, don't play with it.
I was born in 91. But yeah, like I feel like this time period is really like our time to
Mhm.
shine because of, the civil rights movement. It's already, been a few years. The 90s, New York has been super trendy, so it's like that diversity has been cool. And then now it's 2024. Like I feel like now is really the time for us to excel and kind of like take advantage of the fact that it's Latinas like turn to shine, you know?
Timing is everything, and that's what this book really just taught me too.
Yeah.
Like you said, circumstances and timing. And like you just said, 100 years ago, we wouldn't have had the opportunities or anything. Like we just honestly, like even us on this podcast
Literally.
here, like, even just women in general
Yes.
too. But like Latina women too, I'm like, wow. Because even the organization, I feel like even 20 years ago, were there really like sí había, but like not
No, yeah. And especially like the
not this
organization
way.
that we're a part of, they
Hmm.
it was only finance. And
Oh
then
wow.
they started to branch out to be, business and just like Latinos in the US. Like and only, recently have they branched out. It's funny that we mentioned, even a few years ago because everything is going to change in a few years. 5,
Yeah.
10, 20, 30, 40 years. Like everything is going to keep changing. And so it's like I feel like I don't know, maybe because I'm Latina and I'm paying attention to Latinas, but I really feel like right now is really the time for Latinas to like to be our time, like hit the spotlight and like really excel.
Yeah, I feel like even when we were in middle school and elementary school, I feel like there wasn't a lot of representation. Even in college, like in 2015, 2016. This is gonna, oh my god, it's gonna be almost 10 years
I
ago.
know.
It's like, oh my god, why did I think it was like 2 years ago?
It feels like it, but it's not.
Right? Okay, I thought I was the only
No.
one. I'm like, there's no way. But like even then, like there wasn't a lot of Latinos on my
Yeah.
campus. Like I think in my pre-med program, there was like a handful of
Yeah.
us. Very, very few. Even my friend group, I didn't have that many
Yeah.
Spanish friends. Like a lot of them were like other
Yeah.
minorities, not Latinos. So I think it's just so fascinating how he just writes this like every time, and it's like I feel like everyone should really read this book. I know everybody talks about like, oh, reading a book. Like, no, this book, like if you're just questioning, if you're embarking on a really different journey, something that's unique like what we're doing right now, you need to read this book because it just gives you clarity.
Yeah. No, and not only that, even people who do have, let's say, like a 9 to 5, let's say they're an
Yeah.
accountant or something like that, like I think that this book could really empower people to, at the very least, like pursue a side hustle that could turn into more or something. Like it's just very empowering that like there's all these different things that you have to take into account into a person's success. And it's not just that you're smart. You have
Yes.
to be smart and you have to be willing to work and you have to have the experience to make it happen. And if you don't have the experience, that's okay. You just have to figure it out and make it happen. And so
Yes.
it's like empowering too because if we don't know that, if we, it's so common for people to think like, "Oh, only white men can be successful." And that's really hurtful to you if you're not a white man, right? But if you know that you can do certain things and you do have like a say in how your trajectory is, like it's really empowering too. So the whole book is just like really explaining that you have to be smart, but once you hit a certain threshold of smartness, you don't need to be more smart. I think that was another example about the NBA. It's like to be in the NBA, once you hit like 6'3" or 6'4", it doesn't matter how much taller you are than that. One, as long as you're tall enough, as long as you're smart enough, that's all that matters because there's so many other things at play. So that's why I do my podcast. Honestly, it's like I'm smart enough, I am nice enough, and I'm super driven, I'm super organized, and
Yeah.
I can complete a task. So I feel like I could be successful in anything that I go down, and it's just a matter of picking something and doing it. So that's why I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna make this podcast work because no matter what, I'm gonna be successful. I just have to pick the thing.
Yeah, and it's just picking what makes you, even if you're not good at it, but what makes you happy.
Yeah.
If it makes you happy, I feel like it also makes it easier. I can see that you like doing this
Yeah.
because you wouldn't be so consistent with it and so, like, you are very persistent with your podcast too. Like, I see the growth from the beginning of this year to even
Yeah.
now because you are just so disciplined that, and it's hard because it's not like you have a whole crew and team to like fall back on. It's you. So I really like, I'm very proud of you. I'm telling you for doing this on your own, executing it, being all wearing all hats because it's really hard to do
Yeah.
that. He was talking about like with the Beatles. They weren't that good. They weren't the Beatles right away. It's just they made sure that they had bookings every day. And that's what he said. They were getting practice. They were practicing, practicing, practicing. There was no way for them not to be good because they were doing it every day. Yes, they were good, but they were still focusing on the skill and exposing themselves, really going out there and getting it. Like people, just because they have this skill, they lack to realize like you have to like put it into play. Like you have to do the work. Sometimes perfect timing and perfect place too. That's what he also described. Like he was explaining that with like the Bill Gates thing with the Microsoft. I think someone had given him a computer, or that was Steve Jobs. It was something like that. And
Yeah.
when he was in college, they had like just launched that program. Again, he already had interest in that. So it was fairly new. There was no competition for him. And again, he had the money and it was already in the resources to be exposed to that. So it was like perfect timing, perfect place
And
also.
not only that, I think like specifically with Bill Gates, I think his like the moms of the school, they like
Hmm.
raised money to buy the program because the school didn't have it. And then he would use the school's program and I think they would only let him go until a certain period of time, but he was in within walking distance of a university. And he knew that if you went, let's say like at night, he knew how to like get in and he
Yeah,
knew the code to turn it on. So it's like he had so much access to like special and
yeah,
unique things that made him like get to that. And he was a child at this point. So I think this is a little bit different than when we're talking about adults who might not have access to those like really special, unique things. But it really draws the point that, like, for example, you're a makeup artist, right? If you were a makeup artist 100 years ago, like, that doesn't mean shit. But you're a makeup artist now, if you didn't want to do solo para ti, if you didn't want to do your skincare line and you only wanted to do makeup, you could make that happen. You know what I'm saying? Because of this time period. And so it's like the same thing with that tech boom. There were a few of them that they were born in the 1950s. If they were born 10 years earlier, they would have been going to college and married with kids by the time the tech boom happened. Or if they were born 10 years later, the people from 10 years ago, they would have already figured it out, and that doesn't mean shit. So it's like you have to be born in the time, you have to be smart enough, you have to have access to like all these circumstances. And like I'm curious, like this is a little bit of an interview question. I'm curious like what circumstances in your life you think brought you to be like an entrepreneur with Solo Para Ti, your makeup and your consulting.
I really love this question because not a lot of people ask this question, and I always want to highlight this. I tell people, yes, I have my business and everything now, but there were certain points in my life, if I wasn't exposed to a certain something, I wouldn't be where I am now. Like my mom, she was really into putting me into extracurricular activities, really big, big, big on that. And I am so grateful for that because I was always a shy kid. I was stuck to my mom like un pedazo de chicle, like that. stuck to her hip because I was the only child for like 10 years almost. So she wanted to keep me busy and stuff. So she put me in piano, art school, and dance school, like ballet, jazz, tap. So I was really exposed to the arts. And also, it was all local businesses too. So I wasn't even noticing that I was getting exposed to, and they were all woman owned, Latina. It was like, I don't know who, if you believe in God or the universe or whatever. It was just like snippets, like foreshadowing, like my future. I used to see my dance school teacher, who was also my piano teacher. It was here in northern New Jersey. It was called Dance Fusion. They're still open now. But even before that, like art school, I was in art school and I was painting. And, I was in dance school too at the same time. But that's how I got introduced into dance school, was through art school. My partner on the side, she used to go to dance school. I would have never gone to dance school if it wasn't for the girl that was sitting next to me, because she told me she went to that
Yeah.
school. I went to go see that school, and that's where I gained my confidence. And that's where I had to learn how to do my makeup, and I learned how to play piano because she was playing piano there too. So I was already exposed to this really creative world. So I was already into creating and designing. I had to know how to do my makeup. So I applied the skills from art school onto my face. And the rest was history. YouTube had just come out. My aunt had a desktop computer. I wasn't allowed to really watch YouTube at home. So I would watch it in my aunt's. Like, you see, if I wasn't in my aunt's house in the summer learning how to do that makeup, I wouldn't have been where I am today. Because I didn't go to makeup school. I'm self taught. So it's just like those little things. And even with my business, like at the time during the pandemic, I mean, yes, the pandemic was such a horrible time, but I also had that advantage where a lot of businesses were able to really grow because of that pause. But then there was also some that just all depends on the time. So for me, I was able to just invest in my business. Like, I wasn't going straight into medical school. I had the extra income and I just decided to do it because I had the extra time too. I didn't have any kids. I was super young, living with my parents. So they didn't fund my business, but me not having to pay rent helps so much.
So
I feel like people fail to realize those different circumstances in everybody's life. That's why I'm able to be where I am now, because I had my family support. Maybe not saying, "Oh, here's a trust fund," but it's like, "Okay, you can live with us." So,
yeah.
yeah. So
No,
I lost.
no, that's perfect. That's like the stars aligning. I literally you gave me goosebumps because like you have a long list of all these things perfectly aligning so that you could be able to pursue your dreams, just being creative. Not a lot of us have we're not afforded that privilege of being able to have the time to be creative. So there are some kids, specifically like oldest daughters, after school they have to feed their little sister, they have to make sure the little brother eats, that if they get hurt, they have to shower, and then they got to like go to sleep and get them ready in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So like everything had to line up in order for you to like have the confidence to do it. And like I feel the same way. Like, I'm 32 years old, I don't pay rent. Like I've
Mhm,
never really paid like
mhm,
full actual rent. Like I've paid my aunt a couple $100. I've paid, my boyfriend, we have like not split 50-50, but I have contributed to rent in the past. But none
yeah,
of the rent that I've ever paid has ever been more than $1,000. Like that
mhm,
that is such a huge advantage that like I have to use it. I have to make sure that I'm using these privileges that I have to make sure that I'm really using them to their maximum like capacity. Cause I don't, I know I've talked about it before, but like as a teacher, I was miserable as fuck. And I was like, there's no way that my mom came to this country. She worked mad hard. I went to school. I paid all this money and I'm gonna be fucking depressed for the rest of my life. Like, fuck. No, I can't do that. So I love to hear like I love that your mom made you go into like all these extracurricular activities. Like my mom did not do that. Like I did softball, I think soccer, but I wasn't good and I didn't care about that. Like I
that
really
makes me
didn't.
laugh. I know, I am like, again, my mom was born in this country too. My mom had me very young. So she went to she grew up in New York City, the best city in the world. Even though my grandparents, they were immigrants, they migrated from Dominican Republic to here. They didn't know the like nothing, but they made it work. They're from Washington
Yeah.
Heights. Like, that's a really rough neighborhood. I know there's other ones that are, but like this one, they didn't have access to that, but my mom went to different charter schools, and through those schools she was exposed to like this whole other world, and that's how she knew like, okay, I didn't have this, but I want this for my
Yeah.
kid. So it's like, even going, if I really want to go back, it's like even giving kudos to my mom's teachers
Yes.
and just her friends and just her whole environment and everything, saying, I want to move to New Jersey, I want to move out. She used to work, literally, this is how crazy the world is. She used to, so I remember I told you I'm from Fort Lee, originally in Jersey. She used to cross over from Washington Heights to Fort Lee to work at the A&P, which is at Acme now, supermarket. She used to say, I'm going to live here with my family.
Wow.
And ended up moving there. But if she didn't go and cross and put herself out there and want more, she would have known and would have stayed in Washington Heights. And that's why even my mom moving to Fort Lee put me in a position to just want more and realize like, oh, you can own a business. Oh, you can be a woman and have a family, and it could be whatever definition you want it to be.
Yeah.
It's
And, like,
crazy
the
how
book
life.
also mentions that too
Yeah.
because there were I think it was the 1800s. I think it was the late 1800s. So they were skilled laborers, whereas other people in the late 1800s, they were not skilled laborers. They were people that were, like, looking like, they were refugees looking for relief from poverty. So the Jewish immigrants, when they came in the late 1800s, they would start, selling clothing items, and they were business people because that's how they were in Eastern Europe. And so their kids are successful. It's to your
Yeah,
point, like, you're successful because your mom was successful. So if your mom wasn't successful, or if your mom didn't have that, like, that foresight of a future, it would have, affected you as well. So it's not just you, it's like your background and your parents' decisions and their
mhm,
experiences that impact you as well.
for sure. But like, also just getting older too, it's just like really appreciating all of that stuff and appreciating the rooms that you've been put in, because yes, even though you did, he does highlight like being in those situations, the perfect time, perfect place, but it's also consistently doing it until you keep doing it and doing it until you're in the perfect time and the perfect
Right.
place. So that's what I like, how he highlights like both of them at the same time. Like, it's not like he's making an excuse, but he's also saying you don't have this, but you can do
Yes.
this to get to that.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. It's not one-sided, this
Yes,
book.
because I think that's one of the things that he mentioned in what you were saying about earlier, like the Beatles, they weren't just good because they had natural talent. Sure, they had natural talent, but them practicing every single day for 8, 10 hours every single day, after 6 months, they had grown, like, exponentially, not whereas if you had to have a job and you only could practice 3 hours a week, you weren't going to grow at the same rate as someone who does this full time as a job. So it's like also I try to do that with my podcast too. It's like I try to work on it so much because I even subconsciously, like, if I were to sit down and compare my podcast in 2023 to 2024, anything that I write, I think it would be a fraction of what the difference really is because our brains are just naturally like picking this stuff up, or like when you have your collaboration events with other businesses, I'm sure you learn with every single event. You're learning something, whether it's we have to make the registration live sooner, or we have to put a limit on things, or the mic needs to sound different, or just you every single thing that you do, you're learning. And if you look at it like that rather than every single thing that you do needs to be perfect, those are two different viewpoints, right? Like every single podcast that I do, I'm like, what did I learn? What is the next one going to be? It's going to be better. How is it going to be better? And hopefully it works, bitch. I don't know. We'll find out.
No, it's definitely gonna work. No, I see it. I love how you said that though, because I needed to hear that. Like,
You
I
don't
like
need
how
to air
you
out
said,
like anything, but like any even if you have something that fails, just thinking of the
yes.
Latina organization that we're a part of, right? Like if we have an event or if we do something and it's a big flop, like, it's
Mhm.
easy, obviously, it hits your ego and you feel like shit and you feel stupid, sure, obviously, and also you have to be like, "Well, what are we doing better next time?" like, that's
Mhm.
the point of doing all of these things, even having conversations, like, when you pitch your company, like, you've talked about it so much, you know what works with a certain type of person, and you know what works with another type of person, because when I talk to people about my podcast, if I'm talking to men, well, no, no, I'll tell you both. If I'm talking to women, I say it's a podcast to empower women to decenter men. But if there's a man in the conversation, I say that it's a book review podcast to empower women to decenter men. I always say at the end, but I'm not a man hater. I love men. I just think that women get lost in their relationships and in, marriage and with kids. And I like to really remind them that they're worthy of like getting attention and being cared for because we often can forget. You always have to put the disclaimer, right? And so, how do I know that? How do I know that I need to add that disclaimer? Because I've had men be like, they're
Yeah.
offended. They're offended at what you're saying. And so it's like I've had negative interactions with people about my podcast, and that's okay. I'm not mad at that. Don't listen, bitch. Like you're not the audience anyways. But it's a good lesson
Don't
to
make me
learn.
laugh.
It's a good lesson to learn so that when I'm
Yeah.
talking to people, I can be like, "Oh fuck, when there's a man there, I need to, let them know that I'm not a man hater because I'm not. I'm not against marriage. I'm not against kids. Like no, no, no. No. But as women, it's very easy to just be like, oh, my dreams don't matter. My health doesn't matter. My hair doesn't matter. My makeup doesn't matter. Like,
Yep.
not that those things, do matter. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I'm not saying that, but like, you do matter. Your wants and your dreams do matter. And you have to like foster that. But, anyways, I lost the plot here with that. But
No,
the
no,
point
no,
is
no.
that
I
with
love
through
that. I know what you
failure,
meant too, and
through
I
failure,
feel like
you
that was
learn.
important what you had to say too because it ties into everything that you're doing right now. So that's good that you highlighted that because there's so many women out there that have this skill and they have so much potential in them and they don't put it to use because they don't have the people around them or they don't put themselves in the position where people around them are advocating for themselves are putting themselves first, putting themselves out there, like, so it ties into the book again, like not everybody has that network or community. Like I'm so grateful for the organization because it's just like I had said in the beginning of the year when I first joined in our board meeting in person. It's just so cool to see so many Latinos in all these different positions, like seeing one girl working for like a big comic
Yeah.
company, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, and like seeing another person work for like a big pharmaceutical company or finance, like, and they're all Latinos, and especially seeing women too. It's just crazy seeing them being like this VP or president of this such and such. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
If I wasn't exposed to this, I wouldn't have been like, oh, like I used to get uncomfortable because a lot of times when I would go to these entrepreneur things, I was always the only Latina
Yeah.
there, and having that the organization being exposed to that is so amazing. Like my cousin exposed me to that. If she didn't go to college and put herself out there for all that, I wouldn't have been exposed to this and we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for my
Yeah.
cousin. So it all ties in.
For sure, especially if you're the only Latina in a space, you feel like you stick out and you feel like you don't belong, you're not fitting in. But through the
Mm-hmm.
organization, you're like, nah, I do fit in. It's just these other spaces weren't made for me. But when you're now, like, do you feel like now, because you've been a part of the organization, when you're in a situation where you are the only Latina, do you feel like more empowered or do you still feel like awkward?
No, I feel more empowered. I feel like that's like my one of my superpowers now.
Yeah.
I used to be like, "Oh man, I'm Latina." Like, "Oh man, my company name is in Spanish. Like, they're not gonna understand. They're gonna butcher it." I was even contemplating changing my company name, but like being exposed to this and just seeing all that, like now, like I feel very confident, and that is like my advantage
Yeah,
now.
it really is your advantage because Latinos have so much money and we have so much buying power in the US where it's like you're stupid if you're ignoring the Latino population. So the fact that you're focusing on the Latino population, like you're obviously going to be successful. And I think it's really empowering to see like you be an entrepreneur, and also we have a couple other entrepreneurs as well like on the board, and it's just like you said, it's very empowering and it's like, "Oh, they can do it, I can do it too."
I used to think this line was corny. Don't kill me, but remember when they used to say, or they still do, representation
Yeah.
matters. be like, "Oh my god, you're such a
Yeah.
cornball." But now I'm like, "Yo, this shit really it matters." And like I'm like, "Oh my god, I have to be so much more
Yeah.
intentional with everything because just everything matters." Like even with my interns, some of my interns aren't exposed to what I was
Yeah.
exposed to.
And not to get into politics, but with, with Kamala, like, there are so many like, just girls in general, seeing that there's a girl running for office, like, to be president of the United States, like, that is so empowering to girls and
Mhm.
Black girls and South Asian girls. Like, we're hitting
Yeah,
mad boxes with this woman. So it's
yeah.
like, even if you don't agree with her, even if you don't wanna vote with her, that's beside the point. There's like, all girls are feeling empowered, all Black girls are feeling empowered, all South Asian girls are feeling empowered, and I love that. I think that's so beautiful. What a time to fucking be alive, bro.
No, literally, shout out to Drake. I love that song. What a time. No, I love Drake, but
You do?
even
Oh,
Drake,
no,
like
I hate Drake. I think he's so
I
corny.
love him. I
I
love
think he's
it.
so corny.
Look at Drake. Like if Drake wasn't Drake, do you think people will be paying attention to Canada? Because I
No.
wouldn't.
Yeah, no.
And
Well,
that's why it's the perfect
Justin
time.
Bieber, though. Justin Bieber is also from Canada, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot. I thought he was from LA for some reason. I always
No,
think that.
no, but
It really is like it's just so important. That's what I just really, really like this book, and he didn't pay me, even though I would love to meet him one day because I just love the way he thinks. But everyone should read this book, but more specifically, remember, like I said, the representation matters line was corny. I'm telling you, it's just also about all your mindset and you too, like, and having that ambition. But when you're speaking to someone that doesn't have that mindset or ambition, or it's like hit talking to a wall. Like before to me, like I'll be like, okay, yeah, it's a woman. But now I'm like, this is so important, and it's so important again, especially for those who are just like really different and doing something that's like they're like the black sheep of their
yeah.
family or something like that. And it's just so important because when you're seeing that, it's like a confirmation that I'm different, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And
I think as, like, the black sheep of, like, the professional world, which is what I think that, like, we are, it's like,
oh yeah,
I think that we have to be really intentional about who we interact with, because if people don't see it or they don't get it, their fears and their, like, judgment, they could, like, give that to you, and that's, like, not real life. Like, we have to be intentional of being around people who are like, "Yeah, bitch, go do that." Like, "Yeah, you're
mhm.
gonna be successful. Let me connect you with this person. Let me give you this book." Like, you have to be really intentional about who you surround yourself with, because if not, it could literally be like poison, honestly. Like, I it sounds dramatic, but I'm so serious. Like, I you have to be intentional about being around the right person when you're doing this type of shit.
I agree 1000%. I learned that the hard way
Yeah.
this year. Like, I've lost some really close people in my life, and they're still alive, but like, just they're not in my life anymore because of the journey that I'm embarking right now, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And it's just also coming to peace that I'm not responsible with how I make other people feel. But also it taught me I have to be very intentional. Not everyone can understand what I'm doing, but it's also being okay with them not
Yeah.
understanding because it's okay,
Yeah.
and it's not their life. It's learning to live for
Yeah.
myself. That's what I've really learned this year, and just being so careful who you surround yourself with, whether it's blood or
Yeah.
not, even if it's your family too. If they don't have good intentions for you, they don't have like a positive outlook. It's
Yeah.
poison, literally so poisonous, and it'll just kill any good aspirations, dreams that you
Yeah.
have because that's what they think of yourselves, and you are your
You
environment.
really are.
Really are. And something I also learned as a young entrepreneur, especially being a young entrepreneur, because a lot of people, when they start, they have a lot of experience under the belt. Like, yeah, okay, fuck the cash, the experience, because money is there. Anybody could get money. You could really honestly get money. Like, it's crazy, but that's like another
Yeah.
conversation. But it's the experience, the time. You can't put a price on that. And learning now, I'm like, why the fuck am I having all these fuck ups and like all these things? And it's because I didn't know. And it's just learning to be more calm with myself, easy on myself because of the, like, obviously what the book talks about, but also being careful with who I'm surrounding myself, what I'm reading, what I'm doing. Like, my other group of friends, they just like to party and get wasted and just blow hundreds of dollars on bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
and it was just like even the experiences we're having, like people would say, "Oh, you're bougie." It's like, no, I just like good quality experiences.
Yeah.
Like we only have one life. Why do I have to go to Burger King when I can go somewhere
Yeah, yeah,
else?
yeah.
I could go to Chick-fil-A, like, even then, like, things like that, like,
Yeah.
even that's, like, could be bougie,
Yeah.
like, or even clothing, like, I don't wanna wear the Amazon dupe, I wanna get the Skims
Yeah.
one, but it's also learning to be proactive and realizing and putting your big girl panties on that this isn't working, it's taking responsibility and accountability and, like, it's like, "Okay, if this is not working here and, like, my environment isn't good, like, let's change that." And that's exactly what I've done the past 2 years is put everything that this book, not even 2 years, like 4 or 5 years that I've read it, is putting myself in rooms of people that I want to be like.
Uh, Bro, I literally you should see what the post that I'm posting tomorrow. I wanna be the dumbest bitch in the room. I I
Yeah,
wanna learn from everyone.
yeah,
I I
yeah.
really I don't wanna be the expert. I don't wanna be the one, like, telling you, like, I want people to tell me and help me, and I wanna be around people who I wanna be like you were saying. Like, that's so important. So if you're surrounding yourself with people who are okay with, like, drinking and driving or eating terrible food or being
Mhm.
disrespectful to other people. Like if you are around this type of person who like just doesn't give a fuck about a lot of things, it's contagious and it like makes it brings you down. So it's like if you don't want that life, you really have to be intentional and it can be isolating, but it's hard work, but it's good work. And I think it's fruitful too. Like you'll see like a positive shift in your life as well.
Oh, 100%. The past few months, not even a year, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
months, I've seen the shift already.
Yeah.
And it's just like holding myself accountable and being like, okay, I'm going to do this really hard thing and be uncomfortable. And I was like, if I walk alone, fuck it, I'm walking alone, but I'm going to put myself in the position that I want to be and surround myself with the right people and everything. And now my life is so much better. Like I'm in such a healthy relationship. Like I have my boyfriend now, but also like with people around me too, my colleagues, my family, like just shifting my mindset and my surroundings, everything just feels more. It just, what was
More
that?
aligned with what you want.
Yes, that's literally it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I love that. I'm so happy that
Literally.
we're able to do that because I know that there are a lot of people who, like, aren't able to do that. You know, they have a lot of limitations, like, whether it's they don't have parents who are supportive or they don't have a significant other that's supportive. They're
Mhm.
completely alone or if I had a kid, I'm in Texas, I don't have health insurance. If I had a kid, I would not be able to be in Texas. Like, I would have to be in Jersey, and that would
Wow.
be, like, very limiting for me. Like, I get a lot being here in Texas, so it's like there's so many circumstances that I think that we are taking advantage of, and, not a lot of people have those, circumstances, which is unfortunate, and I hope that they figure it out to make
Yeah, but
it,
that's also something that I like that the book talks about too
Yeah.
is if you don't have these circumstances, let's make
Yes.
them. And that's exactly what I'm not 100% nowhere near where I want to be at, but like again, it's aligning more because I'm like, okay, this is not it. Let me put the work in and figure it out what it is that I need to do so I can get the life that I want and everything just aligns
Yeah.
that way. Like I said, I didn't have my parents aren't business owners. I was supposed to go to medical school. That's what I was exposed to my whole life. Like Latinos and stuff, like we work in healthcare so
Yeah, it's
much, I
true.
feel like.
Yeah.
Or like insurance,
Yeah.
and it's just like that's what I was exposed to. Like everyone in my family works in healthcare, I feel
Yeah.
like. Almost everyone I know.
Nurses,
So
like the helpers at doctors' offices.
the
Yeah.
CNAs, MAs, todo eso, the ultrasound techs. So it was just like, I had to really expose myself and be like, no, I want to do this and really walk alone and put trust in myself and put the work in. And it's finally paying off almost 5 years later, but it's also being patient and consistent. And how badly enough do you want to be successful and do you want to achieve your dreams and goals?
I wanna know what can we look forward to in the next, like, 6 months from you? Like, what do you have coming up? Like, how can people support you? Do you want people to hire you as a makeup artist?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
have any events coming up that people need to buy tickets for? Like, how can we support you?
No, makeup. I love doing makeup. It's like my one of my favorite things to do. I don't do it a lot, but I always have like a certain time like set aside for the month for people to do like weddings. Those are my favorite. We do sweet 16s. I do we me. Like photo shoots, all that stuff. So you can book me through Instagram at makeup by Pam O. And then my skincare line, we have a lot of events. The holidays are coming out. We do have a new campaign coming out. We have a lot of new stuff coming out that I'm very excited for, a lot of upgrades. But you have to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our newsletter. It's shopsoloparati.com. That's our website. And our Instagram is at soloparati LLC and TikTok. But I'm very, very excited. Just a lot of new stuff. I've been really taking the time to just invest and just upgrade the brand to just the next level.
Amazing. I'm gonna put all that information in like a text in this thing and also in the description of the episode so people can just click. And I'll obviously be posting mad content from our interview. So people will definitely be prompted to follow you. Don't you worry about that. But yeah, no, this was amazing. I appreciate your time. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, like, comment, and leave a review. New episodes are uploaded every other Monday. You can also follow me on social media at Chicklit Podcast. And remember, if you have any book recommendations or want to be on the podcast, let me know. Thank you for listening. Bye.